SpaceX launched literally the largest rocket ever, beating the N1 and the most powerful, largest rocket ever today, the Starship. And it didn't work out as they planned, but also it worked out as they planned. We're going to take a look at what happened and talk about how what happened was a good thing and it's going to propel them into the next test phase and what happened to the pad as
Well,
well.
I
It's
think
pretty
there's
crazy.
there's two things that got planned here, Will. One was SpaceX plans, as
Mhm.
well as the other one being fans' plans. So this worked out
Right.
just perfectly for SpaceX plans, but not so well for our plans.
Right, right. And, the thing is everybody kinda knew because Elon's been saying this for the longest time, this might not even make it off the pad. So
Yep.
my expectations were very low, like extremely low, like maybe the engines would fire for a second and it would go poof and that would be it. And then they'd have to move to a new test and they might have to get a new rocket or a bunch of new engines. But it actually made it off the pad and it made it
Whatever's left,
pretty.
yes.
Yep. Yeah, let's take a look. Let's take a look at this flight. This is SpaceX's Twitter, and this is the liftoff from Starbase. Here we go. This is from their drone shot, about a mile
It's it
probably
seemed to
away.
take forever to get off the pad, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm
Like, it
gonna
was
zoom
like
this in a
I
little
think
bit.
this started it at T minus 5 seconds or something to start the engines. I don't think it got off the ground until
Yeah, let's see.
5
Let's see.
seconds after.
Yeah,
T plus
so
5.
T minus 0, and then we'll go back a little bit. T plus 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7, 8, 9, something like that, somewhere in there.
Like that, yeah.
That it
It
actually
seemed to take
started
forever.
launching, yeah.
Yeah, and you can see right there, if you pause, it goes sideways. Now, I'm not entirely sure whether that's intentional or not. They could be making it go sideways immediately to get away from the tower,
Mm,
and just sort of protect it a little bit more. Of course, when you go sideways like that, you're putting more of the fire towards the tower as well as you go sort of on an angle. But they could be doing that on purpose just to get away from the tower, or it could have been an issue where we know that 5 or 6 of the engines didn't light, so maybe they're throwing the balance off. But I think this thing can launch with missing 5 engines, so I don't think that was necessarily the issue.
yeah, and we'll talk about the 5 engine issue and how it's possible that it wasn't really, it wasn't just the engines going out, there could be another possible, reason
For
for
sure.
that.
Oh, and look
Um,
at that! Look at that plume of fire. That
and you
is
can
like
kind of
one and a
see
half. It's 1.5 times the length of the 120-meter tall ship. Isn't
what
that crazy?
it's so and you can see, like, if you see, like, where my mouse is right here, it
Yeah.
seems like there's a little
Yeah,
anomaly
for
here, and
sure.
that's where one of the engines went out, I think.
There's definitely something going on there. Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think if we
when it
keep
goes
going, you'll
poof.
see one of the engines explode.
Oh, yeah, one of the engines goes couple it's like coming up. Oh, there it is.
There it goes.
Yeah, we'll rewind that a little bit.
And you see a huge puff of the black smoke.
Oh, yeah. That was
Um,
not
the
planned.
whole thing has a quite a bit of the sort of darker smoke coming out the back. Well, thanks for zooming down there a little bit, SpaceX, so we can see that. That I think indicates sort of a fuel-rich mixture as
Yeah,
opposed to a balanced mixture. So they may want to definitely take a look at that for future because it should be burning fairly clean. I think
yeah,
the combined 30, well, I guess 28 engines um, are just adding up to a little bit of smoke coming out the back.
I mean, it is the most powerful rocket ever, so
Yeah.
there's gotta be some exhaust that they weren't, aware
But I
of to
think
be
they can tune that. I think you can
they
definitely
can
tune
tune
that
it
to be
down.
better than this
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, it looks a little dirty, but also it could be, it could also be the other things that are going on, like the engines blowing out, things like that, because it looked
Absolutely. Well, you saw a huge puff of it
relatively.
as the first engine blew for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Yeah, as you can see, like, it's pretty dirty still right here, like, kind of in the
Yeah.
beginning. It's pretty dirty, but also engines were out, like, almost immediately. Like, I think 1 or 2 engines were out within the first 1 or 2 seconds of the launch, of it
Mm.
clearing the
I'm sure
tower.
we'll find out more information about that as time goes on as well.
Yeah, so it looks like maybe they're just burning up engines, who knows? Burning up, internal components, and then another one
Well,
goes out, real
as you
dark.
pointed out, that first sort of sideways fire, They may have the rocket may have automatically shut down an engine right there just to get rid of that.
Yeah.
It's definitely an engine
You can
gone awry.
yeah, you can see it kind of, suck back up into the engine
Yeah, yeah. I
into
wonder if
into
they
the
just turned it
booster.
off,
They're just
and I
like,
wonder if that might have been contributing to sort of pushing the rocket sideways as well.
"Oh, it's possible too." I mean, who knows about the flight trajectory at this point
Yeah.
because we
Yeah,
don't
we
really
don't
have
know whether
information.
we're correct or not. The entire flight kinda looked like it was doing this on the way up the entire time, right? It
Yeah,
didn't look
stable.
straight, like a straight
No.
trajectory straight up. It kind of always looked like it was correcting the entire way up for me.
Uh, yeah, and that which was pretty neat to watch because, the most of SpaceX's Falcon 9 launches are just perfect, absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a weird one in a while, and
No.
this is I mean, this shows that the structural integrity of the rocket stayed intact through the liftoff, all the way through max Q too, which is
Mhm.
kinda crazy. And then you can't see it in this footage, but after a while, I don't even think we have the explosion on this, but it was a
I don't know, too.
successful launch. Not in this video. I don't even think I have one pulled up, but um, it did explode eventually. And what I think, okay, so we can have these theories right
Yeah,
now.
we got a couple
Let's
of
just
theories. I
yeah,
think you've got your own theory, and I've got a theory as
yeah.
well. We'll see what happens
Okay,
in the
okay. Let's figure this out. I
okay,
we
go
haven't
for
talked
it.
about this beforehand.
No. No,
So
we have not.
um, my theory is the booster was trying to do a flip maneuver to do the boost back burn. It didn't separate from the top stage, from the second stage, and then it would just kinda went, "Well, I'm gonna do this boost back burn anyway. This is planned in," and then it started doing it, and SpaceX was like, what do we do now?" And it just flew everywhere. It did, like, 3 somersaults. It was
Yeah,
absolutely insane how this thing I'm very surprised that they didn't do the flight termination system immediately. Like, they let that thing go for a while, and
I did.
it was it was scary. Like, if the second stage did the flip maneuver, then the top stage, the second stage, the rocket were to ignite and separate just randomly, like, that's basically a missile at that point. So, I mean, they
Right.
do have a flight termination system for that too, but, the way they just let it go, it was it seemed like forever. I don't know, it was like 30 seconds. It seemed like
It seemed
it was
like minutes,
so
but it was
long.
only seconds.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
only seconds. Yeah.
yeah. Quite something to imagine something this big holding together, right? Just the holding clamps that may or may not have been defective of some kind in some way. But this 120-meter tall stainless steel 4 millimeter thick rocket, or whoever, maybe it's five, I can't remember. But that it didn't rip apart at that point, right? With
Mhm.
all those forces, you're going thousands of miles an hour. Um, Now, mind you, the atmosphere is thinner up there or whatnot, but it certainly was. It certainly had a lot of forces on it, and it didn't rip apart, and that's something.
Yeah, so what's your theory about what
Well, I
happened?
had a theory right away, and I think the more I look at it, the more I don't believe my theory, but I'll say it anyway.
Okay.
So, um, my theory was that because six engines, I think the sixth one relit though, but the six engines at one point were out. So I think that it was overcompensating for those engines being out and sort of burning a more fuel-rich mixture to get up to space,
Okay.
which burned the fuel faster than the oxygen. Now they had a little on SpaceX's stream. They had a little indicator of how much was left, but I don't know whether that was live or whether that was sort of what they had planned.
Mhm.
But I think that it basically didn't have enough. Um, Forward momentum to separate properly.
Mm,
So if they had separated, the booster would have dragged the Starship back or something like that. I don't think it was a safe thing, and they just didn't have enough speed to just safely separate or to even get to the point where they were going in a straight line so they could separate. As I say, the entire flight looked like this going up. I wonder whether they just didn't have control of the trajectory the entire way,
that
and
makes
and,
sense.
and it didn't allow for the separation to happen.
Hmm. So that's the theory that you think is possibly wrong? Because it
Well, yeah, yeah.
sounds pretty
I
good.
part of me still believes it, but part of me also is what's wrong, what's going on with those clamps, and maybe the clamps were the problem,
Right, right. And if
right?
the clamps were just to detach the booster from the second stage, everything might have been okay, and the booster may have just they might have had to FTS the booster, but the
Yeah,
second stage may have been able to get up.
may
So,
have been able to,
yeah,
and who knows,
who
right?
knows? Right.
But that's the only part of the clamps is one of the parts of the rockets that doesn't get tested before launch, right? You can't test an in-flight clamp
That's true.
without launching. So it sort of leads me to believe that might be the issue. Um, but I also that trajectory was not straight either. So
But yeah, it was very wiggly. It
yeah,
was
very wiggly the entire way up.
yeah, and that's not good. That's not
No.
but
Now there is a
Elon
rocket. I don't remember which
congrats.
rocket it is. There is a rocket that sort of moves sideways as soon as it launches
Oh,
and then
yeah.
goes up. I can't remember which one it is now.
I can't either.
So they may have been borrowing that little maneuver from them. Um, then
Possibility.
again, it could have been that little flare we saw off to the side. Who knows?
Yeah, and trying to move a 40-story building to the side seems inc what I don't get it. I don't understand it. This whole rocket,
Well,
I don't understand this whole rocket. This thing is
yes,
gigantic.
launching the entire thing into space is also an issue. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so Elon said, "Congrats, about exciting test launch of Starship. Learned a lot for next test launch in a few months," he says on Twitter.
Mhm.
So here's a couple slides from the launch itself. It looks like and I saw this one earlier, but it does it look like this is bent right here? Like, does it look or is it just an optical
It
illusion
looked
on
like
the
that to
camera?
me too. It's
Yeah,
funny
it
you
looks
say that.
like
It looked like
sort
it
of
to
like
me too.
a little
Yeah.
wiggly,
I think it's just an optical illusion. It could be like heat distortion. I mean, the day was getting warmer at that point, so I don't know.
but
I
as you
don't
can
know.
see, down at the bottom here, you can see where the engines were cut off.
Right.
2, 3, 4 engines are out in the bottom left, but it's going 288 kilometers per hour and,
1
at
kilometer
that point, and then 674 kilometers.
at
And
5
then
kilometers.
at 5 kilometers yeah, so T plus 1, it's still intact, and it's, like, absolutely incredible that this made it off the pad,
Yeah.
and then they made it this
And
far.
that was the stated goal. Get away from the tower. That was
Get
it.
away from the
That
tower.
was the
That's it.
goal.
They
Everything else
gained
after
so
that
much data.
was just extra information, extra data to analyze and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, so that being said, we'll get onto some more of these tabs later, but the the ships that are being built now and the boosters that are being built now, with the data that they collect from this, those could become obsolete as a doom and gloom kind of
Yep.
immediate response is like, well, what does this mean for the next boosters? Because if they use the same architecture, they use the same engines, they use the same clamps, they use the same electronics, everything. What went wrong? How did
Yeah.
they fix it? And are the boosters that they're building now even going to be relevant in a few months?
Right.
And Elon
Well,
knows
we've talked about this before, and Ship 24 itself was irrelevant,
it's
right?
obsolete by
This
now.
is
Yeah.
it's obsolete. This thing is a year old now.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and
not.
they've gone way beyond that in the next ships, and even the ships that are ready next, the S-26, I think, is next. That one doesn't have is a different architecture, doesn't have any fins on it. But that one's outdated too. So every ship, this is the whole iteration process. Every ship is improved a little bit.
Yeah.
But you're right. It'll be the next ship after this one, after this launch. The next ship that's built will have so many changes to it,
Yeah.
like they all do, but they'll have actual, changes with data driven behind it.
Yeah.
So,
So,
and both
another important thing is that,
behind it.
uh, yeah. So, another important thing that's we have to talk about is that SpaceX is using the Starship to launch people into orbit eventually, but they're using them to take them down to the moon's surface for the Artemis 3 mission. And Bill Nelson, the head of NASA, said, "Congrats to SpaceX." He knows it's a test rocket. He knows what's
Hmm.
going to be happening. These things.
Well, they all know
He
for
probably
sure.
wasn't expecting it. He was probably expecting an explosion on the pad, just like everybody else. you know, um, so it's a good kind of confirmation from NASA that SpaceX did the right thing here, and gave him. Congratulations. That's a
Quite a bit
huge
of
deal.
there's also a fair amount of politics behind this tweet as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
Bills knows what he's doing. He's got to keep everybody happy and everybody in the fold. So I think that this message was typed out 3 weeks ago, and they're just waiting
Probably.
to send it.
Yeah, they probably had different versions, you know, like,
Yeah, yeah,
"Great job,
exactly.
SpaceX, even
Yeah,
though the rocket, destroyed the OLM,
yeah.
you get your
Scratch that out.
that's great
Blew
data."
up 100
Yeah.
meters up. Scratch that out. Blew up a
Right,
kilometer up. Scratch that out.
right, right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So, uh, we have this is a cool shot that, we found on Twitter from Simon Proud Simon underscore sat on Twitter. It's from a NOAA satellite, and you can see, the anomaly
The anomaly.
of the launch
The RUD.
from space.
Yeah.
It's yeah, that's crazy. You can see this from space. So they apparently they had this satellite sanctioned off just for this event, and they were just filming this today. So
Mhm.
very cool that they caught this the way that they caught it. You can see how much how much I, for lack of a better term, how much space there is between space and Earth
Yeah.
because the thing didn't even make it up that high.
That's right.
Didn't even
I
put
think it
stage
was
separation.
37 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It surprised me how much above the launch pad they were in this view. Still, they hadn't sort of started the following the curve of the Earth. They were still very much vertical in their ascent.
Yeah, even though it looked like the rocket was veering off
It
tremendously,
looked like it was going off, but no, it
it
was
didn't
very
make it into
vertical.
the yeah, they didn't make it into the Gulf very far at all.
No,
I was when I was watching the initial footage on SpaceX's stream, I thought they were miles and miles and miles down into the Gulf, but it looks like they're a couple miles out. I thought they were
there's the
10, 15
beauty of
miles out already.
yeah. I mean, the beauty of launching a rocket with no people on it is that you can do a much steeper climb.
Yeah,
You don't have to sort of cater to humans and do a gentle slope.
yeah. I
So
mean, humans do mess up rocket launches, so I mean, come on. You just wanna go straight up, right? Like, you wanna get there
straight
as
up.
fast as possible. Evelyn got, from Tasmanian got a really great tracking shot of this as well, and you can see from Evelyns View, here we go. We'll do a if it'll load. Come on, Evelyn, load up. 420 view of SpaceX Starship first ever launch attempt to orbit from Isla Blanca, South Padre Island, Texas. It was amazing. Congrats on lifting off Starbase launch pad. So for some reason, this isn't
Yeah,
loading.
great video.
Yeah, great video. Great job, Twitter. Remember when Elon bought that for $44 billion and said he'd make it better? Anyway, this is a great video. Go check out Evelyn's Evelyn's
Yeah.
Twitter. I don't know what that
Yeah,
noise
it was
is.
a great video. Evelyn did a great job tracking the rocket through the air.
Yeah.
She just using her hand,
It's,
did a great job.
Jane IDY Eve at Twitter. So I guess go check it out on her Twitter page. There's another cool video too. We'll just move on from there because you can't really talk about
Yep.
it. Can't see it. Um, this is the view from Mexico. And I think you said you saw, did you see this one?
I saw this one, yeah.
Oh, you saw this one. Okay.
Really good video, yeah.
Very good video, but there's one part of this video that we got to talk about for a second because this is the launch. It's a it's an amazing video of the launch. Um, and I apologize if there's any lag from any of these videos. Um, we're recording the screen, but the watch this part right here. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, look, a
Somebody
bird.
saw oh look, literally, and I'm not like making fun of this person at all because I would like if I were just filming and I saw a bird, I'd be like, hey, look at that bird. But they filmed instead of filming the most impressive rocket of all time,
Yeah.
a bird just flew by right there.
I think that
It just flew
when I was
by like
watching this, I thought,
started
"Well, you know what?"
tracking.
Yeah. When I was watching this, I thought to myself, "Oh, you know what? They're worried about the wildlife." They were looking at how the
Possible.
wildlife was reacting to it.
That's
Now
possible
these
too, yeah.
birds could have just been flying by, but they also could have been running away from it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So another interesting part, which that was funny, but this is the interesting engineering part, is right like in a second or two, the engine blows out. So one of the engines blows out right about here. There he goes. And then you can see that big, thick plume of smoke
Yeah,
underneath that we were talking about earlier. And
which is
look at how
which
dirty
is
that
half a kilometer long.
is. Yeah, it's huge. Look at how much just dirty smoke. And we're saying dirty because it's
Call it
supposed
soot, but yeah, it's not.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's supposed to burn cleaner
yeah,
than this. So,
cleaner
and
than
they'll,
that.
like Neil was saying, they will figure this out, the mix of this, so they can have a cleaner. Um,
Unfortunately, in this video, they don't follow it all the way up,
I
but
know. Then
from
they
what
go.
I can see, this plume, which in itself is,
That's.
it looks like a volcano's gone off.
I mean, okay. So let's take a look at this. How big this plume is. On the bottom right here is the launch tower. The launch tower is 420 feet tall, somewhere for let's just say 450, just to round
Yeah,
it out. That plume is thousands of feet tall. Like, it dwarfs everything around it.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so, I
And it's
I
mostly just dirt, right? It's just
yeah,
dust from the
sand and
ground that's
dirt
been
and
well, and concrete and
yeah,
a
we'll get
launch
into that.
tower.
Yeah, we'll get into that too, and that's so there's, right here, let's talk about that.
Sure.
So, since we're talking about the concrete, right here, Lab Padre, a crater McCrater face underneath OLM. Holy cow! Lab Padre on Twitter posted this picture, an aerial photo of the OLM, and as you can see in the bottom here, it just got demolished. Like
Yeah,
that was all concrete underneath
it
there,
was concrete. It
and
wasn't
you
thick
can
enough, that's for sure.
wasn't thick enough, wasn't strong enough. The rocket was way too powerful. There's no flame diverter.
Yeah,
Um,
Elon's been adamant that he doesn't want a diverter, right? So this is evidence that you need a flame diverter.
yeah,
I think that we may see some construction before the next launch attempt and a flame diverter put in here because you can't have that happen every time you launch a rocket. He wants to launch
yeah.
these every hour.
Yeah, either a flame diverter or a deluge system or both would be the most ideal,
I don't
but
know a deluge system would keep up with that.
I don't think so either. But I and it would mitigate some of the damage to the
Maybe.
like the undercarriage here. But as you can
Yeah.
see, it wasn't just right underneath it either. It was off to the side. There's like
Yep.
crumbling concrete over here,
Yeah.
all over this. So yeah, it's absolutely just demolished under the orbital launch mount. So
Hmm.
um
The mount itself doesn't look too bad. There's a couple of panels missing on the in the protective shielding it's got on there, but for the most part, it doesn't look too
yeah,
bad. From well,
I look
from this
it
very
looks
grainy footage.
yeah.
But
I think it looks pretty good considering what happened.
yeah,
I mean, that's the most violent thing that's ever happened, you know, of a rocket, it's the most powerful rocket. So
yep.
I'm not surprised that the OLM survived. I'm just surprised that not more of these
It was
panels.
definitely damaged. It was definitely damaged. There were some crispy parts to the side of it.
Yeah.
Um, particularly near the bottom where the flames would have been diverting. Um, yeah, there was definitely some damage to the tower, but overall, I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think so too.
Remember
Uh,
these legs here that we're looking at, these 6 legs are holding this thing up, go down 100 feet. So there's no danger of this thing falling over. Um, it's just a matter of getting it fixed up and not allowing this to happen again. Whatever's happening here, it can't happen again.
yeah, because part of what happened in the initial launch here, we'll go back to this one. Um, the initial phases of the launch where things were blowing out, except for that bird. We will go back to the SpaceX. There we go. The liftoff from SpaceX. The initial engine outage, which you kind of see about 5 seconds in here. Let's get up here a little bit. And as they move away from the tower, you can see on the left side of the rocket, something went wrong right about there. And could that possibly be shrapnel from the concrete that
Very, very
blew
likely.
up into the rocket? And maybe
Yeah.
that's the reason that they're going to get a flame diverter.
Yeah,
Like that would just solve everything really quickly. You just
sure.
put a really thick piece
It
of steel down.
surprises me. It surprises me that Elon's so adamant about not having one or has been adamant
Right.
about not having a flame diverter when it doesn't cost him anything. It obviously costs money to make it and to put it together, but there's no added weight to the rocket, and that's the whole point behind, the way this entire system is being built,
Right.
is that stage 0, which is the tower and the mount and everything, has everything built into it. So the rocket doesn't have to have that stuff built on it, just to
Right.
lower weight and make everything simpler on the rocket. Um, Stage 0 can be anything. It's not going up into space. Put the flame diverter in, put everything you possibly can in to make this a successful launching area. I don't know why he's averse to building a flame diverter. Something tells me that we'll see one very soon.
I think we will too. In his There was old tweets of him saying not building a flame diverter could be a potentially bad thing. But also he believes in first principle, which means like no part is the best part. Start from nothing and then keep nothing for a long time until you only build what's necessary. And then now he knows that the flame
Well,
diverter is
and I
necessary.
agree. I totally agree with that as far as
Yeah,
the rocket goes. But for the groundworks, no part is you can put any part down there. It doesn't matter.
right,
So
right.
whatever's going to make it work. But yeah, I definitely think that there was probably some concrete damage uh, to the underside of the rocket. I mean, there's literal protection around each engine, right? That they had to add because of that issue,
Right.
because they were getting concrete, even from Starship's launches, they were getting concrete sort of thrown up in there and causing some damage. So that's why they have the protection that they do now, which is added weight, right? That
Right.
protection. So maybe with the flame diverter, they don't need that stuff so much.
Yeah, take that stuff off the rocket,
Yeah,
lose a little bit of weight, add it to the ground. The ground isn't gonna, it's not
doesn't
gonna
matter
go
what you do to the
anywhere.
ground. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So just build a flame diverter, and I think Elon is okay with changing his mind too, as long as something
Mhm.
works. I mean, it's engineering. This is fast prototyping. So within the next few months, they'll have another one of these things ready to go.
I
And
think it if we can rest assured that if you and I, engineers that we're not, are saying flame diverter, then somebody at SpaceX has thought, oh, we should probably build a flame diverter. What do you think?
yeah,
So
I'm sure they
it's
have
definitely being talked to,
they
but
have it planned out and everything, and they're
yeah.
ready to build it, but they were probably just like, "You know what? This is our test article. We're gonna do whatever we need to do to launch this thing as
Mhm.
fast as possible." And then Elon's probably like, "Well, let's just try it without it, and then see if it works, and if it doesn't work, then we're gonna rapidly iterate, put a flame diverter down there." It might have cost us a couple months to rebuild the
Innovation.
OLM,
A
right?
flame diverter is not innovation. That's known quantity, though.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
physics.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
it's simple
There's a
principle.
reason they did it in the 50s.
Yeah, because they learned that the rockets are super dangerous and super powerful.
Yeah,
And, the flames from those things can just as you can see from Lab Padre, it just destroys everything underneath
for
it.
sure. And it's not just that, right? You've got potential damage to the tower, which I mean, it looked more like burn damage to me. But even the storage tanks, those 8 storage tanks that are off to the side, they're dented,
Yeah,
and that's now you're starting to get dangerous, right? You've got cryogenic fluids in there, which could explode or
yep.
implode. So I mean, that has to be dealt with. You can't have that happen,
Yeah,
not even once.
did you see the videos of, the nearby cameras, Lab Padre posted?
Yeah.
And they were just yeah, one and also there's a video of, I believe it's NASA space flight's truck that they used for their
Yeah, the
robot
back
camera.
windshield got
Just
blown
yeah,
out.
destroyed. Like,
Yeah.
it was like one of those, I
Looked
don't
like
know,
a
like
war video.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like, when the
Yeah.
bombs go off and they, like, blow over those little buildings,
Mhm.
It looked like
Oh,
one of
like the
those.
shockwave, yeah.
The shockwave just pushes it.
This wasn't a shockwave, though, this was a piece of concrete.
Yeah, this is just a shrapnel of concrete, yeah, from this OLM. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think the flame diverter is probably a necessity, and I hope Elon just posts a tweet and says, "Going with the flame diverter."
Yeah, well, the Lab Padre video, which I encourage everybody to go and find, uh, their camera is in a protective enclosure, which is good, but it's also, I don't know, half a kilometer away from the launch pad, and it
Mhm.
had concrete and dirt flying by it, like, nonstop for quite some time.
Yeah.
even from that distance, and it wasn't like falling concrete. It was being, going horizontal still. It was still
Yeah.
going very fast. So they definitely need to do something about that.
Yeah. That's the I think that's the major takeaway from this. Also, also the structure of the rocket, pretty big deal. Make sure it doesn't do the big wiggle. I mean, it's a pretty big rocket, so the stainless steel, the structural integrity was good enough to get through Max Q,
Hmm.
which is insane.
Yep.
Um, but the clamps might not have worked. Who knows at this point? We'll
Who
see.
knows?
Yeah,
We'll know in the next couple days for sure.
Elon will tweet about it. Um, but Christian Davenport from Washington Post said, "Successful failure, as they say, FAA confirms no reports of any injury. SpaceX and NASA pleased with the test flight." So
That's it. All
they
that
got
matters right there.
that's all that matters. I
Yeah.
mean, they're still gonna build this rocket. They still have their billions of dollars from NASA, to take people to the moon. They're gonna continuously iterate this in the next probably few weeks. I'm thinking 3 weeks. This is my just gut feeling.
3 weeks
Probably
for what?
a rollout of the next test article.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 3 weeks within the month. I mean, they have to
I'm
launch it in
thinking. I'm thinking.
to Elon.
The next booster we'll see on the launch mount is 2 months at least.
2 months. Okay.
You need to build something. You need to fix it first of all. You need to
Yeah,
assess the damage. You need to figure out a plan to add a flame diverter or some way to stop that from happening again. You need to fix all the tanks that got damaged, the tower, whatever damage was there. There's a lot of work to be done.
gut feeling 3 weeks. Gotcha.
All right, all right. Yeah, that's what I was basically
Yeah.
saying. Is
Yeah,
3 weeks.
you're agreeing with me
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, as much as I would love like, that was just a joke, of course, the 3 weeks thing, there's so much work to do, and, of course, they have to figure out if they need a flame diverter, which they do. Um, and as, like, a layman who is not an engineer, but as somebody who saw this launch and noticed so many things get destroyed from it, flame diverter, just do it, get over yourself. Like, it's
Uh,
easy.
It's
Just a
a
bunch of
no-brainer, unless
it's
they've got some other, futuristic plan to divert all those flames and not have it eat
yeah,
the ground underneath the rocket every time it launches, because that can happen.
yeah,
I mean, the whole point of Starship is, you wouldn't throw away an airplane every time you launched it, right,
right,
and build a new one. Well, you wouldn't throw away the launch mount every time you launched a rocket and then build a new one. You
right.
gotta figure out some way to make it reusable 100% every time with zero damage.
Yep. Yeah, it would be like throwing away the runway every time you
Yeah,
landed, or every time you every time you took off in an airplane.
yeah.
Be like, "Well, let's just dig up this runway," It wouldn't make any sense. So,
No.
um, yeah, once they figure that out, I do think you're right. I think it'll be months before, they get another article out there, whether it's a booster or, like, they'll test a ship, or they may even do some cryogenic testing at the Massey's range in some
Mhm.
form, so they might be able to do some testing there. Some very small initial testing, and they might do some, uh,
Do they have the fluids out there at
um,
Massey?
I don't think they have. I think somebody was talking about doing some sort of tank farm at Massey's at some point. I don't know if they do at this point, but they
They would
said
need something for testing of the Raptors if they're
yeah,
doing that out there.
yeah,
So they would need something, but I
yeah,
don't think they are gonna have enough to fill a Starship or a booster.
yeah, they'd have to build that out too, and that would
Yeah.
be insane. Like, that's another huge project, which, I mean, I've heard rumblings of it, but I don't know, when or if that's ever gonna happen, in the next few months. So,
Mhm.
they'd have to just bring in tankers and, like a direct feed from a tanker.
Actually, that sounds
Like
safe.
like 20 tankers, a bunch of pipes going in.
I'm sure they're meant to do
That would
that.
make sense. That would Yeah, so as far-fetched as that seems, there's a possibility, but also
Hey, we're
more than likely
talking
not.
this is SpaceX, so
Yeah,
nothing's beyond their capabilities and budget, as
yeah,
it were, right? You want a tank farm? Okay, here we'll deliver you 3 tanks today, and you're done. 1 nitrogen, 1 oxygen, 1 methane.
yep.
Let's get to town. Let's get to business.
Yeah, exactly. That's all they have to do. I mean, it seems easy as we say
Yeah,
it, just deliver
yeah.
3 tanks. Just deliver
Us
3 tanks,
us
no big deal.
us non-engineers are making
Yeah.
things real easy. It's easy
Yeah,
to say it.
and, as I've seen the tanks delivered down there, and it does like, they just drive them in there and they put them in their place. They do have to pour some concrete underneath them and let that
Mhm.
sit for whatever, a week or so to let it cure. But once that's all ready, the tanks can literally be installed. I was there one night and they installed 3 tanks. One I was filming across the street and I saw 3 tanks just move in. I was ready to go home. I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh, there's nothing happening." And then, all of a sudden, I see a cop car coming down the street, and there were 3 gigantic tanks, right behind the cop car, and they were being transported in. They pulled in, they moved them into place with a crane. That was it.
that's
Like,
it.
that was it. And then that's it.
Involved.
Well, they had they had to install the plumbing too, but that didn't take that it doesn't take that long. They have
Yeah,
to test those things as well.
for
So,
sure.
I mean, few months, it's possible. They have like a mini tank farm to test, starships at Massey's. Who knows? I don't even know what the layout of Massey's is and how much property they have over there and what kind of
Yeah.
environmental reviews they have
I
to do
wonder
with
if
stuff.
there's any issues with the production site being downstream, if you will, from Massey,
Mm.
right? Because Massey is sort of towards Brownsville more than the production site is. So I wonder whether there's an issue with sort of quote unquote trapping people down that road. So if something does massively go wrong at
Oh,
Massey,
right.
you can't get out, right? There's only one
Yeah.
road in and out. So
And it's a
I don't know.
small dirt. It's like a almost a one lane dirt road, and it's not that
Yeah,
good.
right.
It's not it's not a pleasant road to drive down. I've driven down it
Mhm.
once, and I have a sedan, like I have a Subaru, so it should
You're
be
talking about Massey?
yeah, down to
Oh,
the
okay.
Massey's,
I
right.
just meant the main road, the Highway 4.
Oh, yeah.
Like, if that one gets damaged in some way, people are sort of trapped at the production site. Not that it's life or death kinda trap, but
Right,
it's
right,
still they couldn't get in and out.
right.
So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
I wonder if the beauty of having the launch facility where it is because there's nothing beyond it, beyond
That's that's
the
true.
the the
Yeah,
sand, really,
there's just
right? If
one
something
way.
catastrophic happens down there, it's not really the end of the world.
Right, right.
So,
Yeah, and yeah, so everybody down the production site would be, um, they'd be there for a while, but also they'd have to have some other way to, like, block off the road. They'd have to work
mm,
with local Cameron
yeah.
County. They'd have to work with, the police,
Yep.
mm, all the fire departments, all that stuff to, like, get this thing up and running. So, as far as that is off the topic of, like, the launch today, and that's, like, a whole other topic, but that's pretty cool because there's a still a possibility that it might happen,
Mhm.
but it
It's
could be a
definitely a possibility, yeah.
future possibility, and I don't think it's gonna happen in the next few
They'll probably
months.
get it up in the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, it's SpaceX. They'll be like, "Well, we should probably start testing," and then, like, they're just gonna have a team on the data, they're gonna have a team on, the launch and everything, and then they're gonna just have, like, this other team transporting tankers in there and
Yeah,
transporting tanks and, yeah, getting everything ready with Cameron County, and, yeah, I mean, they go at a breakneck speed, like, it's crazy how fast they work.
for sure.
So, yeah, it was absolutely beautiful launch today. I'm super excited about the future. And as Elon says, 2 months, but don't think that's going to happen. Wish it were to happen. But, you know, uh, this is a success, 100% success. They got the
Absolutely.
data that they need. It made it past the tower, made it into the sky.
Yeah,
Um,
they learned so much,
yeah,
and we got to see it launch.
yeah,
It's hard to imagine the scale of what you're looking at right there. 120-meter high rocket.
yeah. And the SpaceX feed has such a better footage of that. We don't have it here right now because I didn't have it queued up, but it's think of a I mean, if you've never seen a 40-story building before, if you've never been to a city with like a giant apartment building or like the Statue of Liberty is the size of the ship on top. Like the
Smaller?
statue Yeah, it's like what's that?
It's smaller, I think.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The ship like ship 24 is bigger than Statue of Liberty. So, if you've ever seen the Statue of Liberty, you know how big that thing is,
Yeah.
and If you ever seen oh, I guess if you've ever been to New York City, you know what a 40-story building is too, because if you've seen the Statue of Liberty, probably been in New York City.
Oh,
So
you couldn't see the Statue of Liberty because there was a 40-story building in the way.
right,
Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's immeasurable how big this is. It doesn't make any sense. Your mind can't comprehend it.
it's
And
measurable, you just can't comprehend it for sure.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
giant,
It's
gigantic.
it's and it flies. Flies to space. It doesn't make
Almost,
any sense.
almost flies
Almost,
in space, yeah.
almost. Yeah. Not quite yet. Soon. Maybe in the next okay, so let's do a prediction here. One last thing before we go. Let's do a prediction with what happened today with this launch
Yep.
and what you think is going to happen. You think it's going to be a couple months before they even get ready to launch, and they're going to have to do testing within a couple months. So when do you think, realistically, is going to be the next test launch of a Starship Super Heavy?
August the 10th.
August 10th. Okay.
Yep,
So if you're watching on YouTube and you made it this far, leave us a comment below about when you think the second attempt is going to be.
an
Um,
exact date. We want exact
exact
dates.
date. Yeah, I think September, late September is going to be the next launch date. They just need a lot of time, and they may find things with the upcoming boosters and the next ships that they just have to throw away.
Yeah,
Like those things may have to be fixed, or they may have to redesign and re-engineer something because this will give them so much data to work with that
for sure, for
they
sure.
can make a new rocket now, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we got no data at all from the ship, right? It
Yeah.
was all booster today,
Yep.
with the exception of perhaps the clamps and how it flew aerodynamically, which they already knew. We got no data from the ship, so S-26, there's no reason you can't throw that on top and launch it,
Sure. Yeah.
right? S-26 is a very simplified version of this. It's just a flying silo, if you will, with a point on it. Um, it's sort of it's the Moonlander or the tanker variant
Mhm.
of the Starship. So it's a much simpler ship as far as that goes. Um, and the next booster, uh, how long does it take them to build a booster? I think the engines are an issue. I think they'll have to maybe they may want to get a full sort of new rank of those,
Mhm.
based on whatever changes they decide to make. But they're also these are still iterations, right? Even the next one, even if they flew this rocket without it being perfect.
Yep.
They knew it
And
was
they knew
months
it wasn't
behind.
yeah,
Yeah,
they knew it wasn't
they
perfect.
knew that the technology that they've got in this is months, if not a year old. So
Yep.
they already knew that, and they flew it anyway. I think they'll fly 26 and 9. Is it? Um,
Think so.
regardless,
Yeah.
they'll just fly them and get some data from it.
Yeah, once the ground systems are fixed up,
Yep,
then I think they're ready to go. You know, like I think the next iterations out there, they have to do some pressure tests, some cryogenic tests, make sure everything works, make sure the ground systems work, like I said, and then I think they're good to go. But it will take them a little bit of time, unless they're just like, the underneath the OLM, they might just put a flame diverter in there, you
hmm,
know, and that
who
would
knows?
be yeah, and
Who
then they
knows?
wouldn't have to really fix a lot there. They
I was
just have
curious as to whether there was an issue they didn't have a flame diverter, like maybe there's a high water table or something they can't go down far
mm,
enough, or there's just other issues, perhaps, but maybe not.
yeah, and where would the flames go? That's the thing because if
They'd be diverted.
like, I mean, as we can see from the launch,
Mm.
the flames went everywhere,
Yeah.
so it's not like they couldn't just divert them in, one direction or,
That's a good point, though. I mean, how much land do they have to the side of this thing? Because
right,
obviously it can't go towards any of the other equipment. It has to
right.
sort of go south,
Yep.
basically. So how much land do they have to the south that they could divert these 150-meter long flames to?
Yeah, and I mean, it seems like they have a decent amount, but it also after seeing the plume and after seeing the flames here, I don't know if they have enough to get out. I mean, I think the flames would probably reach the dunes by the beach, um, but who
For
knows
sure.
at this
Now
point?
you could also
Shoot 'em up
have the
too.
flames diverted and then yeah, they could be sort of reflected upwards, or they could just hit a wall further along, make a a 4 meter, 5 meter thick wall of concrete that it just sort of hits.
Yeah.
It'll have a lot less energy at that point.
Yeah.
If it's 100 feet away or something, 30 meters
Yeah.
away from the launch pad.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe they didn't do the flame diverter for
Hmm.
that specific
Who
reason. Maybe
knows?
they don't have space. I don't know. Anyway,
Well, they
um,
still don't have space. We'll see how the
yeah,
next launch goes.
yeah, we'll see what see what they do. Um, Thanks for joining me today, Neil. This has been great.
Thanks
Uh,
for having me.
Everybody watching or listening, if you're listening here, this is a video podcast too. So if you're on Spotify, you can watch it. And on an audio podcast, it's hard to see the images if you're on audio. So you might not want to listen to this one. Go back and watch us on Space News Pod on YouTube because you'll get all the visuals, you get all the images, you'll get to see our pretty faces on the show. So yeah, again, thanks, Neil, for joining me today. And I guess that's about it today. Bye bye, everybody.